And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 129. Well, we got the Ford hat back, a red shirt as you can see, which will give away the color of this vehicle. We had a long-winded intro last time, so I think for this episode we'll just get right into it, shall we? So, here we have a 1995 Ford Aerostar cargo minivan, listed for $2,200 in Manassas, Virginia. I like the word Manassas. It rolls off the tongue a lot faster than the word molasses. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I believe Manassas has a lot of like, is it Civil War history? I don't know. For our purposes today, it has a lot of Aerostar history. So very excited about this one. As you can see, it's just an absolute gem. We see the bubble top, obviously, which is sort of the biggest thing that jumps out at you right away, jumps out at me anyhow. So let's talk about this vehicle. Driven just 89,000 miles, another sub 100,000 mile Aerostar, I believe 127, the white one, which was also listed as a cargo, and that was a dubious, description, because I mean that was a postal truck, so much more of a cargo than this one is, but you know, we'll get around that. Automatic transmission, exterior color red, interior color gray. The fuel type is gasoline. We have 16 city, 22 highway for a combined 18 MPGs. Seller's description. This is a great one. Car, written with under lowercase c, and then everything runs and works with an uppercase E. So it looks like maybe the word car was in there and then it didn't get deleted from what they were writing, and so it says car, everything runs and works, the only thing is the muffler, very little sound somewhere, the muffler is breathing. This is another one of those great descriptions, sort of a run-on sentence where it almost sounds like slam poetry if you read it. Car, everything runs and works, the only thing is the muffler, very little sound somewhere, the muffler is breathing. We'll try to piece together what exactly that means. So car, I mean, it's a car, that is true. Although, even that you could analyze and inspect a little bit, because is it a car, is it a van, is it a truck? It's just simply an Aerostar. Everything runs, which is funny because it's actually quite a good description. Like, is your alternator running? Is your timing belt running? Is all these things technically run? Is your radiator running? But usually when you think of a car running, the only thing that's actually running is the car, or is the engine. But in a literal sense, it actually makes quite a bit of sense. So everything runs and works. The only thing is the muffler. Okay, that should probably be a period there. Very little sound, that could also be a period. Somewhere the muffler is breathing. I don't know what exactly is going on. You would think if there was an issue with the muffler, it would be the opposite. It would be that there's making too much sound and it's got a leak in the exhaust somewhere, and so air is just like farting out. As anyone who's driven a janky car has probably had a muffler leak somewhere down the line. My 93 has a slight muffler leak right now, and it just sounds a little farty, The only thing is the muffler, very little sound somewhere, the muffler is breathing. Maybe by breathing they mean leaking, like somewhere the muffler is breathing. But so maybe by very little sound they mean it's a very minimal muffler leak. So I think we've sort of pieced that description together. So it sounds like it has a slight muffler leak. Other than that, everything runs and works. So, for $2,200, you're getting this extremely, amazing looking camper Aerostar. And it looks like it has I believe these are a Ford Explorer wheel that have been put on it. And also the other thing that we got to get out of the way right off the bat is this electronic four-wheel drive badge. So it looks like this is indeed an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive Aerostar, which, ding, 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 that's another sort of, illustrious box to check if you're an Aerostar fan, because there is quite a premium on the four-wheel drive Aerostars. It looks like all your bumpers are fully intact. There's a lot of like weird janky stuff going on. Like there's like tar, or maybe it's spray foam or something in this sort of driver's side rear rocker there. And it looks like a little bit of corrosion going on here that hasn't really been addressed. I'm wondering if this G is either the company that did the camper conversion, or if it's just like a Georgia Bulldog thing, because it does have certainly the color scheme, the gray and white, or the gray and red, I'm sorry, of the Georgia Bulldogs, gray, white, and red. So that's, you know, a fun little, you know, thing down there. But again, it doesn't quite look like the G. It looks like the Georgia Bulldogs G is a lot like the Green Bay Packers G. It almost looks identical. So I'm wondering if this is in fact part of the graphics package here, and it denotes the company that did this camper conversion. Very odd here too, how the red is almost bleeding through the striping. Now, if this Aerostar didn't come with these graphics and they were put on by that camper company, I guess it would stand to reason that maybe they weren't applied as well as on the factory, and that's why the red is like sort of bleeding through. Or the paint work was touched up at some point and they didn't have gray, so they just used red to match the rest of the vehicle. Very curious what's going on there. But I have to say, in totality, I absolutely love the graphics package. I mean, this is like primo 90s. And not only do you get these lower stripes, which has, like, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different stripes in that profile, but then you have this upper one with this beautiful swooping line that, you know, really just accentuates the other beautiful swooping line in the body panel of this Aerostar. This front, you know, I never thought of this before, but it really does look like a sneaker. You know, you have your toe right there, and then it goes up, and you have your tongue right there, and then it goes back, and that's where your, right by your triangle window there is where your foot would slide in, and then here's the heel back there, and then it even has like a sole on the bottom of it. So maybe we'll start calling this the sneaker panel on the Aerostar. You heard it here first on Janky AF. Yeah, really just love this nice stripe that goes all the way down. Of course, horizontal stripes on an Aerostar just accentuate the creases in the body panels that we've all come to know and love. And then you also have, like, I guess this is like sort of a door dent protector here, this like actual three-dimensional strip that goes on there. I have one of those on my Fiat X19. It's sort of like just like a body panel accessory. And that goes right below all the sort of painted or vinyl striping, and just adds that much more depth and you know, tactileness to the graphics package on this Aerostar. And I like that it comes all the way to the front there and meets up right with your headlight bezel. So that's very, very cool. I mean, just a phenomenal looking Aerostar. And I think those Explorer wheels really do look good, particularly on an extended Aerostar, on a four-wheel drive Aerostar, and on a camper conversion Aerostar. I just think it you know, makes the whole thing look beefier. So I really, really like that. This bubble top also, we should note, has its own little, you know, stripe elements going on, and has the same thing where it sort of curves up with the profile of the van itself, matching the profile of where your roof runs into your windshield line, and then going all the way back. So that's just another added little detail. And we also, you know, last episode, I was wondering aloud to myself if that red Aerostar, or silver and red Aerostar, which this also, you know, would qualify as, has had the gray with red piping interior. And we can see, and we'll get into more pictures, a lot of good pictures of this one, that it also has the double gray with red piping. So I think that's the absolute perfect interior spec for this particular Aerostar. You also have your rain guards here. I would like to put some rain guards. I think rain guards are one of these like very cheap accessories that I've never seen them look bad on a vehicle. And I know they're aftermarket, even for people who like their vehicles bone stock. I just think those rain guards, they always look good. And if you look on the Aerostar in particular, the width of the rain guard perfectly matches the tint on your triangle window. So we have this nice, you know, almost unbroken line going all the way down here, broken only by the vertical line of your panel that holds on your mirror, but I think it breaks it up quite nicely. And that line, of course, runs into your very kind of unique crease in your door panel, how it comes down sort of short of where the rest of the crease of the door is down here. So that's a very, you know, this is probably the busiest section of the Aerostar. But the triangle window and these little sort of curves here, just, it's a, you know, it's a flavorful design that you can really get into and see how those lines all interact with each other. Radio antenna obviously still there. It looks like the door may not shut all the way, or, you know, sometimes these Aerostar doors, they'll roll really nice and smooth on the bearings in there, but sometimes when you shut them, they have a tendency to just bounce back a little bit. My Green 93 does that, so I usually kind of will shut it with 2 hands and just make sure it stops and doesn't bounce back. So that could be just, you know, they shut it with 1 hand and it didn't close all the way. Or perhaps it is a little misaligned or has an issue there, but probably not a big deal. Something that just, you know, could be tinkered with and made a little bit smoother. On this side, now this is the other funny thing, on here we have, it looks like this rear bumper is almost more of a black as opposed to a gray. And we'll get into some more pictures, but it looks like there's a sizable chunk missing there. I'm wondering also if they found a black, just the actual corner, and the rest of the bumper is gray, and so they sort of pieced it together as best they could, which if they actually found just one section and actually got it to match up, at least to cover this, because when we don't have the side section on, it really looks pretty janky because you see just how much of the vehicle the bumper cover occupies, and you have that metal panel there with a little bracket on it that everything hooks into. So if they actually, you know, went through the trouble of just finding this corner piece, you know, I applaud them for doing that. Okay, now we can see the back here. It looks like the whole back bumper is like sort of more of a black than a gray. Perhaps it was painted at some point. Now, Universal, I wonder if that is perhaps the camper conversion company. A lot of you out there, I'm sure, know more about these camper conversions, and maybe you can confirm or deny that for me, whether Universal was like a camping outfitter, a camper outfitter. Looks like we have a West Virginia plate, which is very interesting that this is in Virginia. Obviously not too far away from each other. I saw another red camper conversion some time ago, and it was one that got away. You know, I didn't quite get to do an episode on it. I remember that one actually being in a little rougher condition than this, but I wonder if it could be the same one. Now here you have, so perhaps it was purchased and then moved and is being sold again, or just the people that owned it moved, you know, and are now still trying to sell it in a new location. You can see like what looks like some black tape or just like a sort of mangled mess of stuff sort of holding this bumper together. I think if you tore that out, you could with body filler, and you know, I know body filler isn't great, but it's just on plastic. The nice thing about it is you can sand and groove and, you know, grind it away to actually make it look almost new. So I think if you took this bumper off and spent some time with it, you could rehab that bumper. And the bumper is obviously, as we know, a very key element of the Aerostar. They really complete the aesthetics of it, and they're getting harder and harder to find. So, you know, I always sort of harp on the bumpers, because if you're going to buy an Aerostar and really want it to look, you know, complete, then you really do want to try to find one with those bumpers on it, because it's going to save you a lot of hassle right off the bat. Here we can see the opposite side profile. Very nice pictures of this Aerostar. I really appreciate that. The passenger side looks so distinct from the driver's side on these Aerostars, because the passenger side, of course, is the only one with a door. Aerostars were never offered with dual sliding doors. I believe that came on the Windstar. And I think, I'm trying to remember, I don't know offhand when the Caravan came out with dual sliding doors, but I believe when they first came out, they also only had a singular sliding door. If you've spent enough time around Aerostars, you don't even think about it. It's kind of just, you know, you just accept it for only having one sliding door. The bubble top really does look great on this Aerostar. I think it somehow accentuates the Aerostar's design, because again, you have these multiple layers of sweeping upward diagonal angles. You have one and then two, and then even within them you have like secondary contours and grooves. So really you have 1, 2, 3 different profiles. It looks like a scenic mountain range of like undulating hills and valleys, which I really, really like. How much this actually adds, because it's not a true, I guess it is a bubble top, but it's not like an expandable one, at least that I know of. It just, you're really only adding a couple inches to the interior height of the vehicle. However, I suppose in the right circumstance, that could really come in handy. I wonder, standing up in this vehicle, how much more room it actually gives you. Okay, luckily we also have interior pictures. And the thing I love, so I was in a band once upon a time, and our first touring vehicle, sadly, was not an Aerostar, but it was an Econoline that was like the same like sort of maroon color or dark red color with all the graphics on it. And you can really get a sense of what's going on down here. It definitely looks like it. You know, it's a little rough around the edges, but overall not too bad. Overall pretty solid. But these wood panels, like when they tried to dress these vans up and gussy these vans up, the Econoline we drove around had the same thing where they just like slapped on a bunch of, now I think it is real wood, which is funny because nowadays, like in even a lot of like luxury cars, you still don't get real wood unless it's like a real high-end thing. But like my Buick has a ton of fake wood on it. And this, I think these are actually probably real wood, but it really does look like something that, and no offense, but it looks like something that someone built in shop class. So it's, which is nothing against shop class, like they're very nicely milled pieces. But certainly the grain of the wood and the texture of the wood is something you would find in like a 1990s kitchen. And obviously that's gone out of style. Now I happen to love wood paneling. I'm obsessed with wood paneling. I love any and all wood paneling. So I'm not knocking the wood paneling. It's just funny that I prefer like the thin strips of dark wood paneling that everyone had in their basements in the 80s and 90s. It's hard to find that stuff anymore too. I would love to do like a bathroom with that wood paneling. Neither here nor there. However, I just think it's funny how that was sort of, it's like, well, we got to do something to like dress up this silly computer. Sorry about that. When these widgets pop up when I'm trying to scroll with my mouse, it kind of drives me nuts. Anywho, what's the word? Not at all dampening the greatness of this Aerostar. We also have a center console here, above mounted header, sorry, I'm tripping over my words. Above mounted center console. And it looks like they've almost trimmed that out in wood too. And this wood is actually, the contours of that look a little bit more like customized and svelte as opposed to just like, you know, strapping on some wood. Now it looks like that wood does actually serve a purpose here because it looks like it adds another little pouch for like a beverage or something on what is normally just like your plain door card here. So that's nice. Looks like we do have power locks and windows, which is very nice. And of course the great lumbar support button on your seat. Again, for like a 90s minivan, like quite a nice luxury feature. It looks like something is going on with the door where maybe we are missing one piece of factory plastic here. Also, the Aerostar just has, there's so many unique things about the Aerostar. The door release is so unique. And that's this little like upward facing handle, and it has a nice action to it. Like it doesn't I wouldn't say it feels like a, you know, the sophistication of like a German door, but just the way an Aerostar door closes and opens, there's this distinctive sound. And if you know, you know, like everything, like you always know you're in an Aerostar, which I love. And that's a good thing. It's not like a, you know, it's not like a negative or a pejorative, like, but you really do know that you're in an Aerostar. All the sounds are so unique to the vehicle, and perhaps that's like any vehicle that you spend a lot of time in, but this one in particular just feels memorable. So let's move on to the next picture. Okay, great picture of the interior. Very, you know, I gotta say, very pretty seats are in pretty darn good shape. Now it only does have 89,000 miles on it, so presumably it wasn't used that much. It also looks like we get more wood here on your custom center console. Now I wonder if, you know, I don't know if the center console, the plastic center console that's on a lot of Aerostars, it seems like it was an option because a lot of them don't have them. Although you still can find them online for not that much, and I would like to get one for my 93 eventually. But in here you get a full-on wood console, and again, I don't know if they went over the existing one or if they just built their own from scratch, but you even have a little cutout handle for like a coffee mug with a handle on it, a cutout little slot there. So that is quite nice. I like that little detail. Looks like we have some wonderful sort of, I can't tell if those are flames or like tribal tattoo or maybe just a camo. Looks like camo and maybe tribal tattoo steering wheel cover, which is wonderful. I personally, I like how thin, I really like a thin steering wheel. And I like how thin the Aerostar steering wheel is. It isn't like one of these like fat things that, you know, I just feel like you have a little bit more control and you have a little bit more steering feel with a really thin steering wheel. So I like that. Obviously, that you can take that or leave it, you know, and it looks like we do have a little trees air freshener, which is very nice. The headliner, you know, slightly torn and stuff. None of these headliners were very good, but no headliner on a 90s car was very good, so I'm not going to really ding it for that. I've never replaced a headliner in an Aerostar. I imagine it's probably not the most enjoyable job, but, you know, the little tear in the headliner is far from the only jankiness of this vehicle. So it all sort of just pieces together, and you just accept and appreciate the entire package for what it is. Okay, you know, second gen, like facelifted interior, obligatory mileage shot to let everybody know that that actually is the true mileage there. And, you know, not a whole lot to say about that. Picture right there. It looks like, I wonder if this screw is always there. If there's a cover that usually goes to it, or if that was, I mean, there's a groove there. If anyone knows if there's supposed to be a cover over that, or if I'm just never noticed that screw there, please let me know. Okay, we have the back. Now interesting, it doesn't say anything about the rear seats in this vehicle. And that's funny because you would think with like a camper conversion that it would either have the rear seats or, we have another great shot of this wooden center console. It doesn't look like it's sitting exactly level there, but what are you gonna do? While we're at it, we should mention in the door cards this beautiful, and it even goes to the sliding door, sort of where the sliding door opens. You have this little like leatherette piping here in a darker gray fabric. Like I really just think from the factory, the fit and finish of the Aerostar, they gave you all these little kind of luxurious accents on the vehicle, which they certainly didn't need to do. And I just really like that. You know, there's a reason why this was like the family minivan in the 90s. I mean, you got to think about the way cars drove, the mileage, the reliability. In the 90s, this was a pretty premium vehicle, and if you look at what the prices were even back in the day, still quite affordable. We have our you know, rear AC vents here. Looks like one might be missing, and then of course, like all great camper conversions from the 90s, you have the built-in, you know, looks like a maybe 12-inch TV screen. I'm not sure if it's color or black and white. It looks like we have some auxiliary like spotlights here that have been added, and like another light bar here, all decked out of course in this beautiful stained wooden trim. I can't tell if this is a VCR. This might be a VCR with a VHS tape. It looks like we might even have a CD player in there too, or perhaps that's just the control panel for the VCR. And more controls up here. Obviously the rear facing HVAC controls are very nice. And of course up there somewhere we probably have the headsets that you could plug in. And I would imagine that they integrated the headsets into this multimedia system that they installed during the conversion. We certainly hope so. Nice thing about the bubble top is you really don't have to worry about the rear headliner you know, being amiss, because that was obviously removed when they cut the roof out. I always wonder if they did anything to strengthen the roof of these vehicles that they cut the tops off of, but it's probably a pretty thin piece of sheet metal, and most of your structural integrity is probably coming from the frame anyways. I have always wanted to, and actually a bubble top like this would be a good one to do, because they probably cut out the roof line a little better than, you know, a random John or Joan would just with a reciprocating saw. So that would be kind of cool to actually remove this. And I've always wanted to make like a Safari Aerostar where it was just completely open top. Now, yeah, maybe you could put the little, you know, you could get a boat outfitter to put on a snap-on canvas top that has like the you know, the little buttons that you snap on, and you could put that on, you know, in a pinch. You could take it on and off pretty easily, but that would be actually, this would actually be perfect. I never thought about that, to remove this panel and have like a Safari Aerostar. I was thinking of, you know, chopping into the roof of a normal one, but the bubble top maybe would be the perfect one to do that to, because like I just said, you'd think that this line would be a little bit nicer if they cut it from the factory, and all these lines just a little bit cleaner and easier to sort of you know, finish off, so that it wasn't, you know, you didn't have sharp jagged metal poking out everywhere. But it is funny that the rear seats are not in here. You have a little bit of staining on the carpet, nothing crazy, but obviously not, this isn't like a cream puff Aerostar, but that's okay. A ton of space back here, and you see that you do get, you know, quite a bit of, you know, 8, 9, 10 inches extra. So I wonder how standing in here would be. Now they listed it as a cargo van, which is interesting because the fact that they have taken out the rear seats kind of makes it look like it is being used as something of a cargo van. And I would imagine if you did use this for the trades, the nice thing is you would be able to stand up a little bit easier in it, and you could add more shelving and stuff. The downside is if you wanted to put ladders on top, seems like that would get a little bit more prohibitive. And even if you were able to add something of a ladder rack, you would just have to go that much higher to get the ladders on there. And with your lift gate instead of barn doors, opening the hatch with a ladder on there would be a little bit difficult, and you just have to put the ladders up so much higher. Now, you know, and to reach up to get the ladders on there and off there would be a little bit more of a chore. However, if you did have them lifted high enough, perhaps that would mean you could lift the tailgate a little bit easier, and maybe that would sort of balance itself out. Okay. So now we have a great picture of the back. We can see these, I wonder if this panel, what's behind this panel, if there's a, I don't think there was a window back there. I wonder why that's there actually. Tons of controls here. I wish that these photos were a little bit more high resolution so I could see what all these controls are. I wonder if these are actually more power outlets. And I can't tell if this is a speaker or a vent of some kind. I really do like these little wooden spotlights they put in there. That's kind of fantastic. So, you know, the fact that the rear seats are removed does mean it would be, not that you couldn't put them in and out quite easily, but if you're buying this van as is and you don't want to go find seats for it, if you were going to use this as a camping vehicle, it'd be kind of perfect because again, you have that raised roof, and if you were to, you could get like a queen size bed in here or build a little box out just to go over your wheel wells, and then you'd have storage underneath, and because you have this raised roof, it basically, you know, would be as if the bed was on the floor in terms of your height. So obviously this would be quite an ideal camping vehicle, especially because it is four-wheel drive too, if you're driving up the mountains or something like that. Okay, so yeah, on the other side, this little piece of plastic was missing here. It's pretty common for these door cards to sort of rip and tear a little bit. You know, doesn't bother me, doesn't bother you. Or doesn't bother you, doesn't bother me, I should say. It doesn't bother me in either case. I don't care if it bothers you. The color-coded window switches, I think, are so cool. It just adds a little bit of pop of color. And, you know, so I think that's just great. I've always wanted an Aerostar with power windows and locks just so I could have these buttons. I would love to buy some of these buttons and be able to use them for something else in a different application. I've thought about doing that. I wish I was a little bit more electrician-y, or, you know, inclined in the matter of doing tasks that involve electrical work. However, you could, even if you couldn't do it, you could probably get someone else to do it for you relatively easily. So maybe one day I'll figure out a way to integrate these buttons and switches into a different application. That would be pretty cool. For now, though, we get to enjoy them in the manner they were designed for, which was the power windows and locks on an Aerostar. I think that's nice to have them on like a camper vehicle like this. Normally, I like crank windows and you know, manual locks, but I think on like if you were camping and stuff, it might be nice to have those little luxuries and amenities. You can see this little pop-out storage here, and it has a like this like very like sort of janky strap. I guess it's just like tensioned. But again, like look at how, if you just took a snapshot of this with this leather or vinyl, whatever it is, piping, and then this really nice quality fabric, and then again, like really durable, tough stitched leather seams everywhere. Even you get a little pull handle on there. If I just took a snapshot of this and told you it was in a Rolls Royce from the 80s, you know, if you told me that, I would believe you. It really is a nice looking feature. I talk about this quite a lot, but I just think it's, and to have that pocket in the side of your door car is very practical too. A lot of vehicles don't have that, or they'll have like the hard plastic, which is, you know, very inflexible. So maybe it fits a cup, but maybe it doesn't. But if you want to put something in there and have it stretch and then take something out and have it reconform, it's just absolutely perfect. So I talk about this a lot, but I really do think it's this area of the front driver and passenger door cards is really a really underrated little, you know, just feature that, again, they didn't have to put that in the vehicle, but they did. And I think it just shows, I always talk about the Aerostar as being this like very aspirational vehicle. And I think they were really thinking about almost everything when they built this vehicle. I went through a long development phase, and it's just got a lot of these cool features that, you know, that maybe we take for granted and are just nice to appreciate. It looks like we do have a little sheet metal screw there because like on any vehicle, these plastic little, they have a name for them, those little plastic clips that you put in there tend to, you know, degrade over time, but that's on, you know, any vehicle, not just an Aerostar. So there you have it. We'll go back to the front there and drink it in. Just a stunning Aerostar, wouldn't you say? I mean, the fact that it's extended all-wheel drive, the bubble top offers you so much possibilities. I do think that I would like an all-wheel drive extended Aerostar, and I would kind of like to use it as my, my vehicle that I transport ladders in, because although I can transport ladders on top of my Prius, I don't like to drive around with the roof rack on. It's a little bit of a pain to take on and off, and it would be nice, by the same token, it's very silly to buy a vehicle just for when you have to transport ladders, which for me these days isn't that often, thankfully, because they're either at the job or we have a lift. But every once in a while I got to haul around a bunch of ladders, and it would be a good way to justify the purchase of an Aerostar as a work vehicle. So in the back of my mind, I'm always window shopping for that. However, if you're going to make a camping vehicle, I mean, I think this really, really would be perfect, because you get that extra little space at the top. It's rough around the edges, but it's nice enough. And, with a vehicle like this, really all you care about is the mechanicals. As long as the mechanicals are good on it, a little bit of corrosion here, a little bit of dings there, a little bit of plastic on the inside, headliner, it doesn't really matter. It's got low miles. If anything, it doesn't look too nice, and you can be a little bit more incognito with it. If you have one of these like $80,000, $90,000 Sprinters, well, then you're opening yourself up to a little bit more risk, because you could get break-ins or whatever. Now it's probably a little harder to keep this vehicle totally secure, but that's sort of going to be across the board. But I think being a little bit more incognito and not worrying about especially if you're camping and overlanding and you get a dent here or there in a parking lot or whatever, you don't care. You're just on the adventure in your Aerostar, and that's all that really matters. So there's something very nice about something not being too nice, as we preach all the time here on Janky AF. So there you go. I was really excited about this one. I'm glad I got it before it went away. It's been listed at this point 6 days ago. I don't expect this to last very long. Certainly for the price, $2,200. I mean, as a starting point on a camping vehicle, that seems like a great place to start. Now you drive it around, you work out the kinks, you see if anything it needs brakes or wheel bearings or alternator, water pump, any of those like sort of not too big issues. And maybe outfit it a little bit in the back. Again, add some shelving in the back here under the bubble top. I do wonder how, updated the electrical system in here in terms of the camper auxiliary electrical system. Like, I wonder how much of this stuff you could use right off the bat, or if you would want to add like a second car battery or some solar panel system, and if you'd have to if there are, I can't tell if there's it'd be cool if there are power outlet plugs in here, but I can't tell if that's the case or not. So even if you got to do a little bit of outfitting to it, but just as like a rubric, as somewhere to start, tons and tons of room. You got the 4-wheel drive, and you got a lot of space up top that if you wanted to build a storage section here over these rear wheel wells, put a bed in, then you would really have a really nice camping vehicle, and you're getting in pretty darn cheap, especially for these days. Let's go look at this passenger profile shot one more time. Again, love those wheels on it. It really just does look like a nice solid vehicle. Again, a little corrosion down here, whatever. As long as the frame's good, a little corrosion here and there is not gonna do anyone any harm. So just an exquisite vehicle. We always talk about how the Aerostar does so many things, and we just did a postal service vehicle. Obviously, I've rambled off the list of all the different vehicles, different vehicle types and use cases there are for the Aerostar. But a bubble top camper, we've done a fair share of them, but not too many. So anytime one pops up, I get very excited about it, because it's just cool to see. And you got to figure, there's only so many Aerostars left, and the camper conversions, I don't think there was a ton of them made. And certainly, how many of them are out there left, especially in this good condition, because for, how old this car is, a 30-year-old vehicle, still in quite good condition overall, I'd say. And it's just cool to see. And again, now I got my wheels turning, because now I would want to buy a bubble top Aerostar to turn it into a safari vehicle. Because imagine just taking people around, going out for ice cream, whatever, and just having an entirely open sky above you, especially driving at night and seeing the stars out there. So I've always wanted to build like sort of a safari Aerostar, and I guess nowadays safari means like, you know, lifted and bigger wheels. People are safariing Porsche 911s and stuff like that. But I mean sort of like and you could do that. You could put a lift on this thing and put some bigger wheels and tires on that as well. But I sort of more mean the open air, like a true like African safari where you got that big open canopy top and you can look out the roof and see everything. So that's what I'd like to do one day. You know, a man can dream. In the meantime, we'll keep finding more cool Aerostars on the internet to talk about. The West Virginia plate, curious. Okay, well there you have it. Just a stunning 1995 Ford Aerostar cargo minivan. I would say camper conversion minivan would be more accurate, but you know, it's whatever you want it to be, and that's the beauty of the Ford Aerostar. So there you have it. Really just solid looking Aerostar. I love it with the bubble top. Okay, I can keep hammering you over the head with it, but you know, it's something that you want to reiterate because you're just so passionate about it. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. We sort of celebrated a little bit last episode, so I won't bore you with all that, you know, hoopla and pandemonium and all that. We'll just keep marching down the highway with more Ford Aerostars. So we'll have another episode of the Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF coming very soon. And until then, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one